Let's take a question from Charlotte Jones, please. Charlotte Jones.
Why do you think Plaid Cymru isn't as successful as the SNP?
Why is Plaid Cymru, the Welsh nationalists, not as successful, not just as successful, a washout compared with the SNP in Scotland? Why is it? Stephen Kinnock.
Thank you. Well, I think it's quite simple that the people of Wales are not interested in independence, and the final analysis is that the Plaid Cymru's flagship policy is an independent Wales, and when you've got the polls showing somewhere between 3 and 5% of the population in favour of your flagship policy, well, to coin a phrase, do the math.
All right. Leanne Wood, you'll have an uphill struggle, but you had all the exposure during the campaign of those the three women on that. Was it the Question Time one? I can't remember which of the ones it was, but anyway, when everybody said what a star you'd been, and yet I think your percentage of the vote went up by 1% only, from 11 to 12 or 10 to 11 or something like that. Why is it not popular, Plaid Cymru in Wales?
Well, I think our time hasn't come yet.
Ah. Say that again.
If you look at the situation that we have in Wales now, we've had a Labour government since the beginning of devolution. That's 17 years that we've had a Labour First Minister, a Labour Health Minister, a Labour Education Minister, and on all three of those policy areas, in terms of health, education and the economy, Wales is not performing well, and in terms of comparisons with other parts of the UK, we're performing pretty poorly. So it's time to replace the Labour government that we have, and Plaid Cymru is going all out over this next year, ahead of next year's Assembly elections, to put forward a credible programme offering solutions to those problems in prioritising those areas of health, education and the economy. And once we get into government, I think that you will see things changing. And I've got to take
You're going into government with the Tories in Wales, then?
No, we won't be going into government.
Who are you going to government with then?
Well, I want there to be a Plaid Cymru government.
But you're so many miles away, and it's like a sort of distant hilltop, isn't it, to you?
Well, OK, you've got to aim for the top of the hill, though. And look, if you look at the situation where the SNP were prior to when they formed the government in 2007, they were way behind as well, and everybody told them that it wasn't possible for them to form a government too. So I don't accept that it's not possible. What it means is that people need to get behind us as an alternative government. I need to take dispute with the issue that Stephen Kinnock raised, and he said that we're all about independence. Independence is something that Plaid Cymru wants to see in the long term, but we know that we're nowhere near being able to achieve that under our current situation. Our economy is too weak. We're already facing a situation where workers in Wales earn 85 pence for every pound of the UK average. Our GDP is way behind 78% of the UK average. Those are the things that we need to tackle and improve before people are in a position to be able to make the choice that any other normal nation in the world can make, and that is to end its dependence on others.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I come to you. Yes.
I'm sorry, Leanne, everything that you've just said has backed up everything that I actually think. That the Assembly is not working, 17 years down the line, education is poor, health is poor. Why don't we just get rid of the Assembly, give it to Stephen as Welsh Secretary, have a Welsh office, and then maybe the Tories can actually do something in Wales and stop them being a third world country.
And you, sir. Yes.
I think it's all well and good that Plaid Cymru sort of advocates the social mobility, anti-austerity, pro-European politics, like in the general election and like what you just said. But at the end of the day, your core message is division, divorce, breaking up the UK, taking Wales out of one of the best economies in the world, a country with 3 million people. You want to remove from a country of 65 million people with a strong economy. So you can say what you want about social mobility, improving the Welsh economy, but when that's your core message, there's no way that Welsh people are going to get behind that. And I think you know it.
Well,
Well done. Stephen Crabb, as Secretary of State for Wales, would you like to take back all the powers that you were being offered on the right here and run Wales yourself?
Well, what I want matters less than what actually the people of Wales want. And we've had 2 referenda in Wales in the last 20 years, and on both occasions, a majority, the first time with a narrow majority, the second time with a much larger majority, much larger than even I was anticipating. The majority of people in Wales said not just that they want to keep devolution, but they want more powers, that they wanted the Assembly to have full lawmaking power, so effectively for the Assembly to become a parliament. So regardless of whether I think the Secretary of State should have back his old powers or not, my view is irrelevant. The people of Wales have made their choice. So the challenge for us is how do we come up with a devolution settlement that actually works in the best interests of Wales, but recognises the point that Stephen Kinnock made absolutely correctly, which the people of Wales, almost on a wholesale basis, reject a desire for political independence from the United Kingdom. People of Wales are much more pragmatic than that. They're fiercely patriotic. They want a greater say over their own affairs within Wales. So that's why we've ended up with devolution. But they actually reject the notion that I'm afraid Leanne campaigns for, which is a breakup of the United Kingdom.
Again,
we're not campaigning for independence. We are campaigning to form
so what's
the government
the point of Plaid Cymru?
Well, because we want to strengthen... We want to strengthen the devolution settlement that we have, and we want to take more autonomy so that we can take more decisions for ourselves. It makes sense for people to take decisions closer to them. Our economy at the moment is weak, and part of the reason for that is because it's tied to a system that doesn't work in our interests. But independence is not on the agenda for Plaid Cymru now today. What we need to do next is not abolish the Assembly, as you've said. It's not devolution that's caused the problems that Wales are facing now. It's the Labour Party that's caused those problems. You wouldn't look at Westminster and say there are problems being caused by the Westminster Parliament, so let's therefore abolish Westminster. No, you'd argue for a change in the government. And that's what we have to do in Wales. We have to replace this tired, incompetent government that has been run by Labour for 17 years, and it needs to be replaced by Plaid Cymru. Plaid Cymru is the change Wales needs.
Stephen Crabb, what would happen if, when the referendum comes, England votes to leave the EU and Wales votes to remain in it?
Well, that referendum will be taken on a UK-wide basis, and that will be the franchise. And
but we know, but the suspicion is that from Scotland's point of view, it will increase the pressure for independence in Scotland if that happens. Would it do the same in Wales?
No, I don't think it would. I think every opinion poll that's been taken in Wales show that people of Wales, their views on Europe and our future in Europe are pretty much aligned with the rest of the UK. I mean, Scotland, it's slightly
different. You don't know what the UK's view is at the moment, do you?
Well, it depends on how much you trust opinion polls, and we've all
know about
my understanding is that the last poll showed that there was a slight majority in England to come out of the EU, and there was a slight majority in Wales to remain in. So under your proposals that your party is pushing ahead with, which is incidentally causing massive uncertainty for business and organisations in Wales, then England could potentially pull Wales out against our will, and that's not on.
OK, you sir in the front row here.
As I listen to this argument, the real issue is we have a 17-year Labour government now in power, yet we've lost 100,000 manufacturing jobs, and we have all of these economic boondoggles that have been out there, nothing that really develops business and brings business into Wales. When are we going to address the economy and building jobs so that 70% of the people of Wales aren't living in some form off of the government teat?
Absolutely right.
Charlotte Church. The question was, why do you think Plaid Cymru is not as successful as the SNP?
Well, for a myriad of reasons. I think that that people in Scotland were more ready, were looking for an alternative. Labour wasn't offering that. Labour weren't left enough for the ideologies in Scotland that were most popular. And I think, as Leanne said, you know, it was their time, but it was a very quick rise, and that doesn't mean that Plaid Cymru are always going to be trailing behind. I think that lots of Plaid's policies are incredible and have, you know, and lots of the Labour policies, which are coming out now into Jeremy Corbyn, Plaid have backed for years, have been Plaid policies for a number of years. And I think that, you know, for Labour in Wales to have said, you know, because of what has happened with education in Wales and there's been, you know, rather a mess made of it, that what Labour said in response to that was, we've taken our eye off the ball, is farcical, really. So I definitely think that the Labour Party in Westminster is a very different thing to the Labour Party in Wales, and I absolutely welcome more diversity on a political spectrum that Plaid offers.
Charles Moore.
Well, I have to be careful here because I'm the only person with no Welsh connections at all on this panel. So I must go cautiously, otherwise I shall look like John Redwood trying to sing the Welsh national anthem. But I just think this, it's an interesting statistic, which not many people in the broader United Kingdom know, that more people at the last election in Wales voted for UKIP than for Plaid Cymru. So more people are concerned about the independence of the United Kingdom in Wales than they are for the independence of Wales. That's quite a striking statistic. I'm not a supporter of UKIP myself, but I just make that point. And I do think it's very important to get all this in perspective. It is absolutely ridiculous in the modern world to try and split up a well-functioning democracy like ours, like the United Kingdom. It can produce great pettiness. Of course, I admire the Scottish nationalist skills in capitalising on the moribund nature of the Labour Party in Scotland and the discontent. But fundamentally, they have a very negative message and a rather dangerous message because they want to create a tight little place which they run. It's their gang, and they want to run it, and it will be very unplural and very undiverse. And quite alarming for anyone who doesn't agree with them.
But maybe
we don't want that. In the United Kingdom, we are a very diverse society, and we should be proud of that fact. It does actually, contrary to many of the criticisms, work, and we've got to make sure that we keep it working.
Yes, but it works. Yeah, it works in its majority for England and for the Westminster elite, and a lot of all of the big decisions, a lot of the money is centralised in England, and so you have to look at why people are thinking like this in Scotland and in Wales, and you have to address those problems rather than saying it's better to be together. Why don't you want to be a part of this really successful economy? Yes, great, but also, you know, we need. You know, it's so disproportionate, the amount of money that Wales is given, even compared to Scotland, and lots of money that is fed throughout the country. And there's some of the reasons why there is malcontent, and you need to understand that.
But yes, you're right, but of course the Welsh are not voting in the way that you say.
I'm not saying that they're voting that way, but I'm saying that you know, those factions of discontent are there, and you need to understand why.
I'm going to try another pair. We've done pairs quite well tonight. The two women sitting here in the front. I'll take you in yellow first, and then the person on your right.
Surely, when you've got a third of Welsh children living in poverty, that needs to be your priority before you even start to think about nationalising Wales.
Okay, and the woman on your right?
Well said, Charlotte. I mean, I think it's interesting. We've got a Welsh secretary sitting here, and actually, have we really looked at the amount of money that is actually allocated to Wales and the impact that that has on Wales and the decisions it has to make about how that money is then spent on health and education and developing the economy? And we don't get our fair share.
Stephen Kennan, do you agree with that?
What I would say is that in spite of the fact that the block grant to Wales has been cut by £1.3 billion in the last 5 years, we've got record levels of employment here. We have record levels of foreign direct investment. We've got the best GCSE results ever, cracking A-level results as well. 90% satisfaction in Welsh NHS services, lower cancer waiting times than in England. So in spite of all that, because of under Carwyn's fantastic leadership, we have managed to actually deliver real quality public services in Wales, and in very difficult times, because there's been innovation and there's been a fresh approach in Wales, and I would say that we are in an excellent position to get a very good result in the Assembly elections next year.
Well, thank you. I'll take a couple more points, but very briefly, if you would. The man in the blue shirt, and then you, Sue, have had your hand up for some time. Yes.
I was just going to say, Leanne, you seem to be blaming Labour a lot for the kind of lack of success of Plaid, when surely the party should be looking at itself first. And maybe that's part of the problem of why you've not done so well.
I was responding to the point about devolution,
And the man in spectacles there, you, sir.
Yeah, Leanne, I think it's a shame you won't work with the Conservative Party, because Wales is absolutely crying out for a change of government in the Assembly. We've had Labour for ages, and especially on education. When I left school 5 years ago, the only thing I was qualified to do was stand in a job queue. It's absolutely shameful what you've done to hundreds of thousands of young people in Wales with your record on education.
So what do you want her to do?
Work with any other party. You should work together. There's a broad range of views in Wales. It's very bigoted for you to just say, oh, 20% of people who vote Conservative, we're not going to represent them. Our priority is to get Labour out.
Would you think Tories should work with Plaid Cymru and get Labour out?
Yeah, I mean, as unthinkable as it might be, we should be looking at all possible options, because the point the gentleman makes is absolutely right. What is really unhealthy for Wales is actually unhealthy for the Welsh Labour Party, is that they just carry on election after election, just assuming that they will always be in government. And Leanne, what we need to hear from you tonight is you rule out forming a coalition with Welsh Labour and ensuring that they just carry on.
I'm going to go on. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to go on to another question.